Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. We welcome our friends in South Africa, the United States, and around the world to this week's edition of A Conversation with El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan. I'm pleased to be your host, coming to you once again through the Salam Media Network out of Johannesburg, South Africa. Salam Media is an online portal for humanitarian journalism. We don't just report the news. We advise you on what you can do about it. This afternoon in the U.S., this evening in South Africa, we have a conversation lined up with two good brothers, Jihad Abdul Mumit and Meyer. Both are founding members of the Spirit of Mandela Coalition. The title and focus for today's conversation is Countdown to the National Mobilization Against Genocides, plural, genocides. A special human rights event that's scheduled to take place in Atlanta, Georgia next weekend. Inshallah, July 4th. Now, before we bring these two brothers on for today's conversation, I want to say something about July 4th. You know, every time this season comes around, this political season comes around here in the United States, I think about a gathering that took place back in 1852. Back in 1852 in upstate New York. Frederick Douglass and his thought-provoking speech, "What to the Slave," is the 4th of July. On July 5th, 1852, Frederick Douglass gave a keynote address at an Independence Day celebration and asked the question, what to the slave is the 4th of July? Douglass was a powerful orator, often traveling 6 months out of the year to give lectures in abolition. His speech, given at an event commemorating the signing of the Declaration of Independence, was held at Corinthian Hall in Rochester, New York. It was a scathing speech in which Douglass stated, quote, "This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice. I must mourn." In his speech, Douglass acknowledged the founding fathers of America, the architects of the Declaration of Independence, for their commitment to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, quote unquote. He said, fellow citizens, I am not wanting in respect for the fathers of this republic. The signers of the Declaration of Independence were brave men. They were great men, too, great enough to give frame to a great age. It does not often happen to a nation to raise at one time such a number of truly great men. The point from which I am compelled to view them is not certainly the most favorable, and yet I cannot contemplate their great deeds with less than admiration. They were statesmen, patriots, and heroes, and for the good they did and the principles they contended for, I will unite with you to honor their memory. You can tell by these words that Frederick Douglass, he was a diplomat. He was a very courageous fighter for freedom, and he was also a diplomat. He understood the politics of the hour. He understood the environment that he was in. He had a deep commitment to the mission of liberation, the liberating mission that he felt compelled to be one of the driving forces for during his age. And yet, at the same time, he understood the need for having the ability to speak truth to power, but to speak that truth in a way that would make it palatable for those who are in a position to help bring about positive change. With all that being said, let us now invite our two brothers to today's conversation, Jihad Abdul Mumit and Matt Meyer. Assalamu alaikum, my brothers.
Wa alaikum salam.
It's good to have both of you with me today. I know, Matt, you are in transit. You are traveling, brother. So you're in the car, and I hope that the signal is maintained. I don't know if if you pulled over. Well, the driver has pulled over on the side. It doesn't look like it. It looks like you are still in motion. So
we're in motion, but inshallah, the signal will ride with us.
We'll hold up, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. Without any further ado, brothers, let's just jump right in. Let's start here. Brother Jihad and Brother Matt, what should we know about the Spirit of Mandela Coalition and the upcoming mobilization in Atlanta? Let's begin with you, Brother Jihad.
Yes, thank you, my dear brother El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan. As always, I begin with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammadin Nabiyyi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, Amid Ba'd. So, assalamu alaikum, greetings of peace to each and every one of you. All praise be to Allah. Peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad, his family, companions, all of them together. And that which follows. The Spirit of Mandela was actually called for, one of the many calls that our dear brother Jalil Muta King, formerly a political prisoner, veteran Black Panther Party member, called for when he was still in prison. And it was a calling for organizations to come together to unite to stand on the Mandela rules, which is the United Nations protocol of the treatment of political prisoners and prisoners of war, how they should be treated. From there, escalated into what we have now, the calling for a tribunal that was held in 2021 at the Malcolm X Baz Educational Memorial Center right there in Harlem, where El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan was assassinated. And Matt can probably speak to you more about the jurists, but we had a panel of 9 jurists from around the world listening to a 91-page indictment that was tendered by the Howard University School of Law under the leadership of attorney Nkechi Taifa, who prosecuted the case against the United States government. And so, as you imagine, they were found guilty of genocide on 5 particular counts, all in line with the elements of genocide as delineated by the United Nations 1948 Protocols Against the Crime and Prevention of Genocide. And so we had charged state violence and police violence against Black and brown indigenous people, mass incarceration of Black, brown, and indigenous people and their treatment thereof, political incarcerations, political prisons of Black, brown, and indigenous people, medical health disparities, environmental racism, which is anything that's happening to the environment as a result of capitalist greed, and just the destruction of the planet always rolls downhill on the masses of working people, Black and brown and indigenous, and in fact, all people. So we had that tribunal to kind of frame, Hajj Mauri, what we've been saying all along since slavery days, the resistance to slavery, the resistance to oppression, the resistance to exploitation, and the resistance to what And Kichi Taifa called in the tribunal the slow genocide of Black, brown, and indigenous people. A lot of times when we hear about the word genocide, it has a beginning and an end. This is what happened. We can quantify the number of people that's been killed, slaughtered, massacred. But here with the situation, Black, brown, indigenous people in the United States has been going on for so long, to the point it's actually become normalized. And because of the exploitation of slaves, free labor for 200 years or so, and then the continued exploitation of resources around the world, in Africa and Latin America and South America, it's a rich country. So it may be hard for a lot of our fellow citizens to really recognize the oppression. Know something's wrong, can't pay your bills, medical insurance is out of control, you don't have any, you're homeless in the streets, things of this nature. They're killing us in the streets. We're killing each other in the streets because of a culture of that's been cultivated of how we hate each other. All these type of things. So make a long story short, we had that tribunal. And wrapping up on that question and back to that more, now what are we going to do? Okay, they were found not guilty. They were found guilty, excuse me. And so now what do we do? So during the whole process, we organized many activists, many individuals, many professors, many union people, many Black and brown and indigenous people, many organizations to become a part of this process. And as a result, now we're saying we want to build out on that and form what is called a People's Senate, a large, huge network across the country that's going to bring together all the wonderful organizations doing profound work in the community, food, clothing, shelter issues, stands against violence, state-sponsored violence, dealing with prison abolition and the condition of prisons, fighting for the freedom of political prisoners, dealing with the whole question of health inequities, things of that nature. And then environmental racism, they're killing the planet. And you can take it from there on that. So we want to build a network that. So July 4th is a strategy call, actually by our comrade Matt here on the phone, that we're building out as a tactic to really build out the People's Senate even more by inviting people across the country and quite naturally our dear beloved citizens of Atlanta, Georgia and the surrounding area to come together and take that false narrative that Frederick Douglass spoke about. What to us is this 4th of July? What to us is this 250 years of independence that we have not been benefited? As a matter of fact, we've been victimized by. And to give some real construction to that. And so after that, I'll get into the details of it a little later. But that's why we have it this 4th of July. It is a mobilization against 250 years of oppression. And we're calling ours a mobilization. It's to celebrate our 250 years of resistance against the slow genocide, the oppression, the social degradation, destruction of our communities, and economic exploitation, and so forth and so on. So the rest I can leave for Matt. I might have left out some key points that my dear brother can fill in.
Okay, Matt, let's hear from you.
First, just to say, it is always an honor to be on the show with you, El-Hajj Mauri, and to be anywhere with you, Baba Jihad. And, whatever our backgrounds ethnically and spiritually and otherwise, we are, Africa is the motherland, and so we recognize an African centeredness. So I love the opening both of you gave. Frederick Douglass is a well-known hero to many so-called Americans, many U.S. people of all races and stripes. And just to look at the West African, the Akan Sankofa, we look backwards like the Sankofa bird of West Africa in order to look forward. We're not just playing with history. We're reading history in order to look at our future paths, our strategic, political, social, economic, cultural, spiritual future paths. So Frederick Douglass is a great example, and we've used Frederick Douglass and that "What to the Slave is the 4th of July" is as part of our narrative building to this July 4th, 2026. It's also noteworthy talking about El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz and the tribunal, because another key figure, a colleague and compatriot of Frederick Douglass from that period, the one that when Malcolm X, Minister Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz was asked, "What about you white people? Is there any role for us?" He said, we need more white people like John Brown, like that abolitionist John Brown.
Yes.
So John Brown, actually, on July 4th, 1859, July 4th, 1859, had his own Declaration of Liberty, a speech he made, not as famous, not as important as Frederick Douglass's of a few years earlier. But John Brown said to his own folks, so-called white folks of that period, there's no real liberty now. And the idea of liberty as constructed in that period of time, in the 1850s, is a false liberty with slavery still existing. And so it's fine to live in a period now, 2025, 2026, under the current president of the United States, for protesters who do not agree with or love the current president to say no kings. It's fine to say no kings. And we've been part of the no kings demonstrations because, yes, it's true. Those guys in 1776 were revolutionaries insofar as they were anti-monarchists. They were no kings guys, and we don't want to return to kings. At the same time, they were not clearly anti-slavery. Some of them might have been, but they weren't serious about it. So the genocide of the Middle Passage, the genocide of slavery continued. And people talk about the 13th Amendment, where slavery continues as part of those in the prison population. Like many of our heroes and sheroes have been part of, like our brother Jihad was part of as a political prisoner. So slavery continues legally inside prisons. Genocide continues slowly in some places and among some people, and quickly, as we see in Palestine. But we connect the genocide, that's where there's an S at the end of our national mobilization. We are a national mobilization against genocides. The genocides against our indigenous, Native American, American Indian brothers and sisters, which goes back longer than 250 years, which is why we say it's the celebration of 250 plus years of resistance. Obviously, the Middle Passage before 1776, also more than 250 years of resistance. And then the Declaration of Independence, celebrated July 4th, 2026, 250 years, continues genocide, as the tribunal said, against Black, Brown, and Indigenous peoples. So in an unprecedented way, or at least unprecedented in the last period, Black, Brown, Indigenous peoples and some of their allies are gathering together in Atlanta, Georgia, to say genocide of all times has to stop. No kings, no colonies. That includes Puerto Rico. That includes so-called internal colonies, like the colonized part of Mexico. That includes the Black nation, which many people consider colonized. No kings, no colonies, no genocides. Oppression and injustice has to stop.
Well said. Well said. You know, I listening to both of you brothers, what came to mind for me was the contradictions that the United States reflected back then, contradictions that are still evident today. There was indentured servitude, all right, that resulted, that was just you can argue just a step away from enslavement. And there was also the laws in place that reduced someone who was an indentured servant to absolute slavery if he committed a crime. I mean, this was the reality back in the colonial days. And when you look at the way that the criminal justice system operates today, it operates in much the same way to this very day. The one way you can legalize bondage and labor, you can legalize the enslavement of labor, is by imprisoning someone and paying them a few cents per hour for their labor if they are imprisoned. And this is this is the reality that we find ourselves in. In fact, many of the camps, the prison camps, the newly fashioned prison camps under the agency of ICE are camps that are exploiting imprisoned labor in many different areas of need within our society, and it's just it's heartbreaking to see. It's heartbreaking to think that we are moving, instead of moving forward, we are moving backward. And an observation made by Jefferson, who was himself, one of the most prominent founding fathers, responsible for this experiment in democracy called America. The lamentation that he made during his time, a lamentation, an observation, a quote that is on the wall of his memorial in downtown Washington, D.C. I tremble for my country when I reflect God is just. His justice cannot sleep forever. I mean, that observation by Jefferson was an indictment then of the contradictions, the hypocrisies that this experiment in democracy was already showing, and it's a contradiction that is still with us painfully today. With that being said, what can we expect from this? From my perspective, and no doubt yours, this very important initiative that is scheduled for next weekend in Atlanta, Georgia. What can we expect to see, and what do you hope to come out of it?
Right. So, if I may, I thank you, Hajj Mauri, for all that commentary, and definitely my dear beloved brother Matt. Matt kind of alluded to it a little bit when he was talking. This is beyond a protest. What we're building now, in protest, the right to exercise your voice against any and all forms of injustice and oppression, as it manifests itself as a protest. We need to keep that up on steroids, but it becomes an issue when we are protesting and not really giving the necessary due diligence to build infrastructure, really to institutionalize our resistance, to really bring about a fundamental change. Otherwise, 10 years from now, you'll still be protesting. 20 years from now, protest. If we don't really figure out how we can capitalize off all the work we're doing and bring it together. I just wanted to build out on that point that Matt was alluding to there. But what we expect out of this is we are hoping at the end of the day, I'll start with the end of the day, to come out with more organizations, activists, labor union workers, nurses, doctors, professionals, students, in community organizations, revolutionary organizations, progressive organizations, to kind of like become a part of, to share their ideas, to build this network and to become a part of this network. The network we're talking about is the People-Centered Network, so that we can do all of those things, institutionalize our resistance broader than the organizations that we currently work in, which is profound. And Matt and I and all of those of Spirit Mandela give our top salute to all, because a lot of times when we talk, yourself, Hajj Mauri, because of your program and interviewing and all your decades of work, when we get on the page of talking about the oppression, we can almost forget about all the work that is actually happening. So we're not coming from that space. We're recognizing and acknowledging all the work that many organizations. I can give a whole list. Matt can give a list, and Hajj Mauri, you could add to that list of all. So, but what we want to try to do is kind of bring that together. So at the end of the day, that's what we would like to see. At the very end of the day, leaving this very serious weekend, for organizations, representatives, etc., that come the day after that Sunday morning planning session. That's what we're looking for, to kind of plow through some of these glass ceilings in our mobilization, and some of them are cement ceilings too, by the way. That's how condition, period. But some of these glass ceilings that we can plow through if we just bring everybody into the room, the right people into the room, use our acumen, our intelligence, our wisdom to think it through and build it out. That's at the end of the day, that's what we like to see as a result of that. Building and fortifying our networks and the communication contacts that we have. Going back into the first day, that Saturday, we will have an interfaith gathering, which Hajj Mauri, you will be a part of that yourself, to try to reactivate the religious communities and reintegrate them into the movement of justice, and being in different ways that vanguard movement, in the United States, like it was in the 60s with the Muslim communities and coming out of slavery with the Christian communities, in the spirit of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and so forth, to really revolutionize. Let's get back into the mix. So that's one of the main outcomes from the morning. As far as the day itself, it's a day of profound information sharing, presentations, and entertainment with the educational spin to it, so people can really enjoy themselves, get energized. And because, Hajj Mauri, we're trying to segue people from the narrative that many of us are unwittingly doing, some wittingly, which I got to talk to y'all about that, but unwittingly celebrating the 4th of July because it's fun. Take the kids out to see the fireworks and eat some hot dogs and hamburgers and enjoy yourself. But so we want to kind of capture some of that enjoyment, to reach out to our sisters and brothers, our community members, our family members, to bring them into a different space where we do celebrate, but we're celebrating with the knowledge, as Matt said, of our history, acknowledging where we came from and where we're still at, and the danger of going back, as you mentioned, Hajj Mauri, so we won't have to be faced with, which I understand the Dred Scott decision is still on. Judge Taney still, his edict on the Dred Scott decision is still kind of there. I don't know if it's ever been challenged, but we're 3/5 of a person. The black codes that you alluded to, Hajj Mauri, 3/5 of a person, and all these type of things. We want to make sure that doesn't happen again to the extent that it was happening, because it is happening today. But the illusion of progress and all of that is there to kind of blind us. But pretty soon, when those illusions are removed and it becomes more repressed, we don't want that to happen. So we are proactively bringing people into a space to network, to bond, to get excited. And then the day after, we're going to do some serious thinking. So it is, as Matt said, a mobilization. It is a mobilization to bring people together. So that's mine. And Brother Matt may want to build on some.
Well, let's start talking about the list. I want to get some specifics about that list that Baba Jihad talked about. Look, we need to move beyond the theoretical, and yes, there's stuff to celebrate, and we progressive people, the left, whatever, we're not so good about celebrating and finding moments to say we come together. So yeah, we will have some good food, halal, not just some of that bad hot dog and yummy stuff, but politically, that coming together is significant. I'm going to name some names and say some things that some of our own comrades haven't heard of yet, because things are just bubbling and bustling. We just got a text earlier today from the daughter of Reverend Ralph Abernathy, Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s right hand through those struggles, that she's sending tremendous solidarity and recognizing the need for broad unity at this moment. She can't be with us because she's filming in LA. She's an actress, but she's hoping the family will be involved, and we're going to see that's going to happen. Malcolm X grassroots movement has been deeply involved in the construction. They're very active in Atlanta. So it's not about any past contradictions about Martin and Malcolm. It's both. One of the dear proteges of Vincent Harding, another of Martin's key people, actually the person who helped pen the speech that Martin gave around Vietnam a year before he was killed. Reverend Lucas Johnson is going to be part of our interfaith ceremony that morning. Lucas is part of a project that he's developing, part of Vincent Harding's legacy, called the Is America Possible Project. Is America Possible? Which raised the question, what is this thing? What is this experiment that people say is a great bastion of democracy, but we know is not that? That people say is peace-loving, but we know is not that. that people say, and justice for all, but we know that's a sham and that's a joke. So is America possible? It always, whenever I hear Lucas talk about this project, and look forward to talking to him on the morning of July 4th in Atlanta, I tell him it reminds me of Langston Hughes' old poem saying, America never was America to me.
Mm-hmm.
So we're
Yeah.
looking at this thing called America really mean. And if you use those words like America and democracy and citizenship, you better use the words genocide and colonialism as well. You better understand the full spectrum of what it is we're talking about. So when we're talking about genocide, and we were beloved and honored to have another child of the great icons of the 60s and 70s, but she's much more than that. Sister Marie Fanon Mendes France, the French director of the Frantz Fanon Foundation, the daughter of Frantz Fanon. She's one of those who actually wrote the foreword to the book that Jihad and I just co-edited along with his sister Timika Shine, book called Guilty of Genocide, put out by Africa World Press. And Murray, in her introduction, says, look, we have to redefine genocide to understand that all of these small, slow things that have not been considered genocide in the past need to be incorporated into the definition that's closer to what the originators of that phrase, Lemkin and others, had meant, not the way it's been misused in the United Nations and other places. So we're looking at redefining our movements by saying we're not fighting any of those battles of the past, not our grandfathers, Malcolm versus Martin battles. No, we're coming together in a new kind of unity, Black, brown, indigenous, and allies there. So what else? We have a great sister, feminist, Joy James, who will be one of the speakers and readers at the rally on July 4th. And I'll just say this because I'm naming names, but I gotta give some tribute to our own. We have a Shaki Binter and Jalil Muntakim, two of the national co-coordinators of the march. But I will tell you that in that old Frederick Douglass moment of diplomacy, we have been cooperating fully with the city of Atlanta, and that's important to us. We're going to have a smooth day. And one of the things we were told we couldn't have, even though we're going to have a celebratory day with a lot of music, incredible music. A guy named Minister King Pieface, a hip hop activist from California, is flying in for that, and many, many incredible local bands from Atlanta, as well as other poets and musicians from North Carolina, from New York, from all over the place. But we were told by the city of Atlanta, and we will respectfully abide by this, that we could not have at the end of the evening fireworks. We could not have fireworks. I got to tell you, my brother Jihad was the most excited one. He really wanted fireworks. I don't know about red, white, and blue. Certainly red, black, and green. We were going to try to have some fireworks. They said no. So we just put on the schedule at the end, not the very end. We're going to end with a poem from Sister Asada Shakur, but near the end, we put on the schedule Jihad Abdul Mumit, verbal fireworks. So we'll be having some verbal fireworks from our brother Jihad. We'll be having music, we'll be having poetry, we'll be having dance, we'll be having African demonstrations of things. It's going to be an amazing celebration of us. Mainly the Black community. We're in a park right outside of the mosque that Imam Jamil Al-Amin helped rebuild that community. So we're honored to be in that community and honored to come together as a coalition, a true, as Chairman Fred Hampton of the Black Panthers said, a true rainbow coalition of peoples to celebrate resistance and to plan for, again, as Baba Jihad said, the next day, July 5th, have a strategic planning meeting to plan for the next steps forward in building a bigger, more resilient movement for an end to all kings, all colonialisms, all genocide.
Okay, we are about to come to a station break, but before we do, I just want to reemphasize one of the points you just made among a number of excellent points. You gave a very good description of what is to be expected on that day, on July 4th, and going into the 5th. But we should note that, or I should say, re-emphasize the fact that this will take place at the West End Park, right across the street from the masjid that was established under the leadership of Imam Jamil Abdullah Al-Amin. And this is a very well-known plot of land in the city of Atlanta, and I've had the pleasure of visiting that part of Atlanta many times, especially when I was traveling back and forth for Imam Jamil. And the community mosque is located right across the street from the park. That's just an excellent area to have and symbolic area to have a celebration and a consciousness-raising event like this. And I should also note that, inshallah ta'ala, I will be coming in to Atlanta on Thursday. I should be arriving Thursday evening. I will address the community of Masjid Al-Mu'minun for Salatul Jummah. I'll be the guest khatib for Salatul Jummah that Friday, at this coming Friday at Masjid Al-Mu'minun, and my address will center around the issues that this event is all about. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll be beating the drums for members of the community there to participate. And then from there, I will be traveling from Atlanta. I'll be traveling to North Carolina on my way back with a stop in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I will be addressing two communities on Sunday afternoon and Monday evening. And then, inshallah ta'ala, I expect to make a stop in Raleigh, North Carolina before making my way to Richmond, where I'm scheduled to deliver the once a month Jummah Khutbah. Usually I'm there the first Friday of each month at Masjid Bilal in Richmond, but because of this event, I requested of the brothers to allow me to address the community the second Friday of July, so I can be in Atlanta with you all the first Friday. And alhamdulillah, they were more than gracious in giving me that opportunity. So with that being said, let's take our first commercial break. In fact, given the lateness of the hour, inshallah ta'ala, this will be our only commercial break. And then we will return back to the conversation on the other side. Brother Sadiq.
Are you banking with convenience, transparency, and flexibility? With Al Barakah Bank's transactional banking account, you can enjoy convenient everyday banking designed around your needs. Benefit from zero fees on point-of-sale transactions and manage your banking easily through Al Barakah's secure mobile banking app and internet banking platform. From everyday payments to managing your personal or business banking, Al Barakah makes banking simple, transparent, and convenient. Visit albarakah.co.za to learn more. Al Barakah, your partner bank. Al Barakah Bank Limited is an authorized financial services and credit provider.
Hey Gulam.
Yeah?
Did I return your lawnmower last month?
No, bhai, you didn't.
Oh no. Now what'll I do? I wanted to borrow it again, man.
With Randry Jewelers, you won't have to borrow or lend because the prices are so well trimmed on all gold and diamond jewelry. Alternatively, we could remake your old jewelry into a brilliant new design. Visit Randry Jewelers at 151 Stevens Lamini Road, Musgrave, Durban. Randry Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
Tonight, a child in a shack will try to sleep through the cold. No heating, no insulation, just thin walls and a biting cold. African Muslims agencies on the ground, reaching families in informal settlements across South Africa with blankets and winter essentials. Help us spread warmth this winter. For 180 Rand, give a blanket. For 360 Rand, a full winter pack. One gift, one less night in the cold. Africa Muslims Agency. Empowering, educating, inspiring.
Ah, the kitchen, the heart of the home, where memories are made and celebrated. Our go-to place for those freshly stacked pancakes early in the morning or for that late-night snack munchies. We are in there together, cooking, eating, and celebrating life together. Let's keep the kitchen a place that is shared by everyone, where we build stronger bonds and grow together. Sunfoil, Now We Cooking. Visit nowwecooking.co.za for recipes that everyone can help make.
At Dynasty Islamic, we believe your financial future should grow with purpose and in line with your values. We specialize in Sharia-compliant financial solutions designed to protect, grow, and preserve your wealth. Whether it's investment planning, risk cover, or structuring your legacy, our approach is rooted in transparency, integrity, and ethical principles. Too often, people invest without knowing if their money aligns with their beliefs. At Dynasty Islamic, we change that, offering you clarity, confidence, and peace of mind. Let us help you build a future that's not only financially secure, but spiritually aligned. Dynasty Islamic, where your wealth meets your values. Get in touch with us at info@dynastyislamicfas.co.za, visit www.dynastyislamic.com, or find us on Facebook and Instagram.
It's a new beginning. It's a new era. Salam Media, humanitarian journalism.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, we are having a conversation on a very challenging subject today, and we have two good brothers with us for this important dialogue. Brother Jihad and Matt, I just, I don't know if you heard about it, but a very oppressive sentence or a series of sentences was handed down in Texas just a few days ago for concerned community activists, concerned citizens who participated in and around a demonstration that took place in Texas, a demonstration that resulted in the unfortunate situation of one of the protesters firing his weapon. This was a veteran who thought that the police officer that he shot was in the process of shooting someone else, and he ended up receiving, not only being convicted, which is not a surprise, but receiving a 100-year sentence. Now, what was startling to note was that a number of men and women who were a part of that protest, a part of an otherwise nonviolent protest, were given sentences that ranged from 30 years on up to the 100 years that this individual received. Again, this aside from that one incident, a very unfortunate incident where a shot was fired and an officer was injured. Otherwise, this was a nonviolent demonstration. When I noted the extremely harsh sentences that were meted out to a number of men and women that participated in that demonstration, and in fact, one wasn't even at the protest rally. One of the individuals who got a 30-year sentence wasn't even in the rally. But because he's reportedly had moved some, so I guess what the government considered to be incriminating evidence of what was intended, you know, he ended up under this terrorism enhancement that was put in place. He got a 30-year sentence. Again, he wasn't even present. So clearly this was about wanting to send not only a over-the-top series of punishments against those who participated, but also sending a message. And I thought about Niccolo Machiavelli. I thought about the advice that he gave to the rulers of his age way back in the day, advice that has been celebrated in governments throughout the West to this day through his book entitled The Prince. He said, quote, and this was advice that he gave to the rulers of his day. He said, you ought to know there are two ways of fighting, one by using law, the other by force of arms. The first way is natural to men. The second belongs to beasts. But because the first method is often not enough, it is necessary to resort to the second. Therefore, the prince must know how to use the beast and the man. This quote, I was reminded of it when I read the over-the-top sentences that were meted out by this judge in the state of Texas. Your thoughts, brothers?
Maybe I can start, and Baba Jihad, you can have the last word. I know we're moving towards the end of the program. Look, I spent the whole of my adult life representing internationally and in the U.S. Different pacifist groups, nonviolent groups, War Resisters League. I was a national chair in the 1980s, Fellowship of Reconciliation. Their executive director is going to be speaking and with us on July 4th. You know, Fellowship of Reconciliation is the U.S. oldest interfaith nonviolence organization. I really want to say I think the days are done when we make these kinds of debates about a society that is deeply, deeply violent, a society that is deeply, deeply upheld through militarism and through military means. You know, the most violent and militarized place in the world. And I look at Machiavelli, you know, a certainly interesting thinker, but I also think back again at some of our own, you know, sisters and brothers of the 1800s who talked about, let their motto be resistance. They didn't talk about one type of resistance or another. The same way Minister Malcolm El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan didn't say, we need to use armed struggle only. He said, by any means necessary, by all the means necessary to achieve freedom. That's unarmed and armed. That's all kinds of political propaganda and self-defense. And when they try to criminalize us, as they did in that case you're talking about, we can't be surprised. Again, I'll quote our beloved Minister Malcolm. You know, we have seen for decades cases of the chickens coming home to roost. And as Malcolm said, as an old farm boy, and I'm not that, although Jihad lives on a farm now, we can't be surprised. We can't be surprised when the chickens come home to roost. We cannot be surprised anymore that empires fall. Every empire in the history of the world has fallen. And they don't fall easily, and they don't fall nonviolently. So the end of the U.S. empire, which we are experiencing, which we are living through, is going to be a very violent process. The question is not whether it will be violent. The question is how united, not divided by yesterday's tactical or strategic questions, but how united we will be as progressive people around how we will survive the fall of this empire. And we also know, and I guess this is the last thing to say, repression breeds resistance. It's not surprising. Trump is not a archetype of the repression. He's just a symptom and a symbol of it today. He wasn't the first. He won't be the last. He's not even the worst or the main one. The fact of the matter is, repression, and they've tried to repress us, look at the number of years Jihad did. Look at the number of years Jalil did. One of our opening speakers who wanted to be there in person, but is not allowed because he's still on parole, will be delivering a statement via audio visual, is American Indian Movement leader Leonard Peltier. 50 years in prison, 50, almost double the years that Nelson Mandela did. And the fact of the matter is, Nelson Mandela, or our dear friend Archbishop Desmond Tutu, literally Jihad, and I spent time in Central Africa, in South Sudan, meeting with and having time with Desmond Tutu's grandson on the 1-year anniversary of the Archbishop's passing. So we're not just talking theoretically about the Mandelas or about the Tutus or about the Kings or about the Malcolms. We are talking about today and tomorrow and how we will build a bigger and broader unity than we ever have to survive and withstand the repression that we know is going to come down. We're not surprised. We're not surprised. We're saddened. Of course, we're going to support the brother that got that ridiculous sentence and the sisters and brothers that get those sentences. But we know there are going to be more political prisoners because there's going to be more resistance. And we're going to be there to support them and build a movement that makes their fight all of our fight until we are all free.
And continue with what Matt said eloquently, we will be there to support them. There's this, the rapper, remember the rapper? I know you do, El-Hajj Mauri, Gil Scott-Heron, one of his lyrics, he said, "You may be shocked. What the heck? They got what?" But you're not surprised. You're not surprised because you know that this is historic and this is systemic and it's been going on, and it is getting worse. So yeah, we're shocked every time something so reprehensible and egregious happens. It shocks our sensibilities. Why? Because we have maintained our humanity, and we should be shocked, not like flattened out about it. But we're not surprised, and so their game plan is always the same, even though the Frank Church Senate Committee hearings said that the COINTELPRO counterintelligence program is illegal, but by any other name, it still exists and it's robust, and they are using the laws, like Machiavelli said, to oppress us, and they're getting more repressive. And the narrative now is everybody's a terrorist. You spit on a police officer, you're a terrorist. You flatten a tire, you're a terrorist. You throw a brick, you're a terrorist. Maybe three decades or 4 decades ago, they was giving a lot of brothers and sisters the RICO Act. That was the big thing. Any and all things to enhance our time in prison. You accused of a crime, so to speak. You talk to so and so. That's a conspiracy. Okay, everybody's sentence is enhanced. You talk to the wrong person and say something that the government is becoming more repressive, that we can't say, and diminishing our First Amendment rights. That's terrorism. So what we have to do is mount those defenses to defend our system.
Okay, we just lost our brother.
But just to carry on, we know who the real terrorists are. We know who the real terrorists aren't the kids that throw rocks in Palestine. They're the people in the Israeli Zionist forces that have the tanks. So we say free Palestine and end the genocide there. We say end the slow genocides against Black, brown, and indigenous peoples here. Brother Jihad, you're back on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm on my phone, listening audience. Forgive me, and a call comes in and knocks everything out of whack. So yeah, but like Matt was saying, like we've been saying since the beginning of the program, is that we have to build and institutionalize our resistance so it makes a difference when we say free all political prisoners, when we makes a difference when we clench our fists and say stop the genocide in Palestine, stop what's going on in Sudan, stop financing the war in Iran, stop, I have these glasses that you have, I can't get new ones because it costs $640. I don't have the money for it, so I wear these old, that's why you see me always trying to adjust these things. I don't have the medical insurance to even come. No, this is real life experience. I can't get my teeth done because it's like thousands of dollars. Neither can my auntie, my friends, my neighbor, while we were suffering. So yes, the things that you delineated in the beginning, El-Hajj Mauri was suffering. The Prairie Land sisters and brothers, we ask that they remain strong, that we would mount our forces to those organizations that deal with political prisoners. We can anticipate this, but we must institutionalize and build a base where we can share those resources. They're taken away from the nonprofit industrial complex, that some of us criticize. Now we have no money to get to anywhere, so now we have to figure out how to get to point A to point B, how to do our programs, how to feed the people. One of the things that they did to drain the Black Panther Party was keep arresting comrades left and right, bail money going out, paying for attorneys. Now we have no money. So it's all part and parcel of their strategy. But I'll say in closing on this question is that, yes, we are shocked, but we're not surprised. We must build our base, not just protest it. I hope those that have ears to hear and eyes to see and the strength and the capacity to do that, to join in such an initiative. I know we have people's assemblies throughout the country to join this initiative. It's not taken away from your organization mission statement. You don't have to put down your flag or lower it in any type of way. To become consciously part of a network that's going to allow us to share vetted out accurate information, as Hajj Mauri Saalakhan Media is doing, to vet out that information so we don't get false information, end up running off the bridge. And then we were able to share, prioritize and share resources that we have collectively together. We'll be stronger than we can imagine. But the way we're working now, we're broke and poor and can't barely pay the rent. And I hope your sisters and brothers, listeners, realize this. And this has to be the strategy, even reaching out across overseas, as Matt mentioned, him and I going many places. But we have to build that base here, sisters and brothers. We have to, and we invite you to come to Atlanta if you can't. It will be on our website, Spirit of Mandela, the links to do the live streaming, who's doing what, so you can chime in and then join us in the organizing, because what's most important is July 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, August, September, and so forth and so on. So that's the deal. So we have to deal with many Prairie Land cases. We got, egregious cases already on the books, Dr. Afia Siddiqui, we have Kamal Siddiqui, comrades that's in prison now still for decades and decades and decades. We have to build a base strong enough so it's not just organizations that are small protests demanding this, the government's not listening. We can make a difference, and the difference is going to be in our conscious numbers. Pardon me for pointing even on camera. Our conscious numbers. So beckoning everybody to heed that invite.
Indeed.
To say something very quickly here, I do want you all to have the last word, but you said our website, Spirit of Mandela, spiritofmandela.org. One word, Spirit of Mandela, just spelled out that way, .org. But I have to say something because it's part of our spirit to pay tribute to our ancestors and say Ashe. But one of our great leaders, both historically but also personally, Jihad, myself, and a founder of the Spirit of Mandela Coalition, was the great and amazing Baba Sekou Odinga. So we pay tribute to Sekou, who helped found us 5 or 6 years ago and just passed, more or less recently. It's been hard to carry on without him. But amongst the things he taught us in this regard, taught us so many things. He was both a general and a great peacemaker, founder of the Black Panther Party International, a great internationalist. But as a member of the Panther 21, was incredibly important for me to understand that though they won that case after years in court, they won that case, all of them were exonerated. It was used by the state to put the Panthers apart anyway, to drain their resources, in just the way that Baba Jihad said. We have to learn from history to be more strategic than ever before. We have to be united. That's part of the strategy. We have to get as big numbers as possible, but it's not just about numerics. It's about strategic thinking. And that's why it's such an honor and pleasure to work with Baba Jihad to work with you, El-Hajj Mauri, to work in spiritofmandela.org in building a principled strategic unity.
Okay, and that's a good note for us to end on. We are at the end of the broadcast. Again, for those who would like to get more information, spiritofmandela.org is where you can go. We go, inshallah ta'ala, I'm looking forward to being with you all in Atlanta next weekend. Again at Masjid Al-Mu'minun for Juma on Friday, on the West End, at West End Park with my brothers and sisters for this magnificent event on Saturday. And then from there to a visit to Charlotte, North Carolina, and a stop in Raleigh before going into Richmond for my monthly address at Masjid Bilal. On that note, we end as we normally do with this highly and most appropriate verse, relevant verse from Surah Al-Asr, from the Quran. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wal Asr. Innal insana lafi kusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amalu salihati. Wattawasaw bil haqq. Wattawasaw bis sabr. Which means, in the translation of the meaning, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, by the token of time through the ages, surely humanity is in loss, except those who believe and do good, and exhort one another to truth, and exhort one another to patiently persevere. Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum.